Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Georgia football edition of the Parker Resources Podcast. I am Michael Parker. I'm joined as always by Chris Parker and Dr. Chad Flat.
Well, Flat's in
Uh,
the bathroom. He's in the
well,
bathroom, but
you know,
yeah,
one
he's
day.
on. Yeah.
So, today's episode, we're going to kind of hit on some of a recap, a little bit of some of the things that went on last week in high school football here in Georgia.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some things that surprised us in the spirit of us liking to hear ourselves talk. We're going to talk about what stood out to us for the next couple of days, and then later in the week talk about the games we're looking forward to this coming week. So it's always a great feeling, Michael, when you can just tell everybody what was good or bad or what they did right or wrong, and you didn't have to do any of it. So,
Right.
you know,
Much better coach when I don't actually have to go out there and
my,
coach against anybody. Just give
my
my
hats off.
advice.
Yeah, my hats off to the teams that lost Friday because half of them have to. And here's the deal: they all worked really hard this offseason. Most of them anyway really did do a great job this offseason. Half of them just have to lose. So it's going to be interesting to see who can rebound from losing, who can sustain success after winning, and all that. But what we're going to talk about today is just I'm going to talk about 6 games that surprised me, and you can throw in any other games you saw, Michael, that really. And I mean, all I mean is the score surprised me. I'm not talking about who was the best game or whatever. I just followed the score and said, well, that one kind of surprised me. Well, and number one, obviously, was Creekside beating Grayson 19-14. How about that,
Right.
Michael?
No kidding.
I wrote that I don't think that it's so much of you know, an indoctrination of Grayson being down as I think it is Creekside being good. I think Creekside is one of those teams that they're either really, really state champion contenders or they're not, it seems to be. They don't really have a middle ground there. They've had some of the best teams in Georgia the last 15 or 20 years. They've had 2 or 3 really good teams. And then, some other years they kind of struggle. So
Yeah.
they're a contender. They hung with Roswell in a scrimmage and beat Grayson. And if you think Grayson's down, and that means they're not going to be a tough out for the next 9 regular season games and in the playoffs, you're going to be sadly mistaken. Grayson will be ready to go. I just think Creekside's really good, and people know that now.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that, Coach Dixon has done a good job. They won the region championship last year, and I think 2 out of the last 3 years they won the region championships.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've got a good group of kids, and they did a good job. It's hard sometimes to convince kids that, you can't always just look at like the team that you're playing. Yes, they were the defending state champs, but it's a new year. That was last year's team, so good for them to come out and play really well against a no doubt a good Grayson team. Coach Carter's doing a good job there too.
Yeah, I don't think Coach Carter and Grayson had lost a game since November of 2019. To put it in perspective, almost 2 solid years, probably 500-600 days since they lost a game. So,
but I mean, some of it for
okay.
Grayson's point is they schedule hard teams. They're not just playing games to win. They're trying to win games in November and in December, and to do that, you have to play hard games in August. So.
Yeah, they're playing McEachern this coming week. I mean, it's going. Right. They're running. They're the defending state champs. Nobody's gonna feel sorry for them. Right. They're gonna get everybody's best shot, and I know Coach Carter knows that. But hats off to Coach Dixon on this win. Hopefully, they propel them into a great season. The second game that stood out to me, the score, and a little near and dear to me because it's in the area I coached for a long time. But Coahulla Creek beat Northwest Whitfield 31-25. Now, I don't know that people across the state are going to see that like me and you saw it, Michael.
Right.
Coahulla Creek at one time, I don't really know a good way to say it, but they were just not good. They were about as bad as you could be. And Northwest is really a pretty solid football program up there in Dalton and really been consistently good for a long time. And Coach Robinson does a great job with them. And I'm sure they played well Friday. I think Coahulla Creek's just gotten better. And I think Coahulla Creek, must be well coached. Coach Danny Wilson, I don't know personally, but he must be doing a dang good job if he got them from where I saw them when I used to watch their tape 3 and 4 and 5 years ago to where they are today. If they're beating Northwest, that's a testament to them. So, congrats to those kids and that community. Never had beat Northwest before. They were 11-79 coming into the game as a program. I mean, that's something. So congrats to those guys.
Yeah. It's always a struggle to get that first win sometimes, but anytime you're the school that breaks off from another school, there's always kind of a natural rivalry there. But it has been one, like I say, since they opened in 2011 that Northwest has has had full control over. So congratulations to them, Coach Wilson, on being able to get that win.
Absolutely. The third game that stood out to me in score-wise was Newton beating Langston Hughes 7-6. Now, for that stood out for me for two reasons, Michael.
You don't see a lot of 7-6s anymore.
Well, first, I'm high on Langston Hughes, and I still am. I'm high on Langston Hughes. But I would have assumed Langston Hughes would have won the game, even though Newton has a very good team. They were a little down last year, but they must have been playing some young kids. They must be pretty good. But Langston Hughes is going to be good. But it also did stand out to me that it was 7-6. I mean, that's like a game from back in my day. You don't see many 7-6ers anymore.
The early 2000s.
Yeah, how about that? So congrats to Newton. They've all had a real good team there for years, but I just kind of was surprised by the score. I thought that was a little bit of an upset, but we'll see how both teams turn out over the next 9 weeks. And, you can kind of see how some of these may not be upsets like they seem now. That gets to the next game, which that's really going to be true of, which is Brunswick and Pierce County. Brunswick beats Pierce County 20-13. I mean, look, some people may say, well, that shouldn't be one of the 6 games. But, Pierce County is good. They won the state championship last year. And Brunswick has been good. They've had some great teams lately, too. But this is a big win for them to propel them early in the season. I think you're going to see both of these teams deep in the playoffs. But somebody had to win and somebody had to lose. And Brunswick wasn't ranked at the time for whatever preseason rankings are worth. And Pierce County won the state championship last year. So had to have been a big night for Brunswick. And excited for those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I saw somebody, posted on your Twitter about, Pierce County was missing one of their best players. And, but yes, that's part of football. You got to learn how to play through injuries. You got to, everybody has those same problems. But definitely congratulations to Coach Pender at Brunswick. That's another one of them. You're playing good teams for a reason in August because you want to be good in November.
Brunswick's a state contender.
And that one's paying off for them. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Pierce won the state championship last year. Nobody feeling sorry for them either. They and if anybody thinks that we're saying these are the best 6 upsets or the best, I'm not really saying that. What I'm saying is I looked at the scores and I said, that game stands out too. There's no way I can know what happened with 400 teams all at once. But I do think that game stood out, and I think it's something you can keep an eye on for all year because you may see that Brunswick is just really good, and they're going to go deep in the playoffs. Calvary Day beat Prince Avenue. It's my 5th game. Calvary Day beat Prince Avenue 21-13. That stood out to me. Prince Ave's defending state champ as well. It's the 3rd defending state champ to fall in these first 5 games we talked about. And Calvary Day was not ranked and has a good program, but they probably haven't been at that level. And I think they may be a team that may be trying to compete for the state championship this year. They're going to have their hands full with our 6th team we're going to talk about. But Calvary Day, Coach Straw is going to have a good team this year, and I'm excited for them. And Prince Avenue is another one. They'll be back. Don't worry about them. Nobody's going to feel sorry for them either. They'll be back. They'll have a great season. This will probably refocus them. They did lose their quarterback, obviously, to Georgia. So, they're probably a young team. They'll be back. The 6th game, last game that I thought stood out to me this week is Trinity Christian beating Athens Academy. And you say, well, that's Trinity Christian played a state championship last year. Why is it? Well, that's not really what stood out to me. The score stood out to me. Look, I've got a ton of respect for Athens Academy. Athens Academy is a great program, a great program. I thought this would be one of the best games all week because I knew Trinity Christian was good. Well, Trinity Christian has beaten them 59-7. Now, I didn't watch the game. I don't know if they had 6 interceptions for touchdowns or I don't know what happened. Maybe it was crazy. But if Trinity Christian is beating a team of Athens Academy's caliber 59-7, the rest of single A private better watch out. I'm just telling you that. I don't know if that's it's a team that played in the state championship game. Coach Dallas used to be at Landmark when I was at Chapel Hill. He's a good guy. And I think he's got a couple of kids on the team that are really good.
His son is the quarterback. I think he's going to Western Michigan. I think he's a very, I haven't seen the kid play, but from just the stuff I've read, he's kind of, I think, a little undersized from what you would see in a typical quarterback, but that he is apparently a player.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see who can hang with him. I mean, if they're that good, kind of like some of those Elka scores back in the day. Elka may still be. Elka may be the team.
I was about to say.
But, Elke used to do that to people. They play somebody in their own class that was good and they're beating them by 50. I mean,
Right.
it's just wow. So anyway, that any game stand out to you more than my 6, Michael? Before we
You
go
know,
off?
there were a couple. The game that I attended between Forsyth Central and Northview was like I say, the score surprised me. I thought that Central would beat Northview, but they beat them 62-0. Was somewhat of a shock. And I talked to the coaches after the game. And I told them the best compliment I could give them was that they looked, well coached and organized. And it wasn't always the same on the other side. But like their kids looked like they knew exactly what they were supposed to do on every play. And it paid off in all 3 phases. They looked like a really good team. So I told them I was very impressed with them. And the other one was another place that we're familiar with, and that was Woodstock and Sequoia. I know we'll talk more about this probably later, but that was Coach Buddy's old school. He went to be the defensive coordinator at Sequoia and was able to kind of go back to his where he coached for 20 years and pitch a shutout. So it's got to be nice for him. So.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna hit him up on our coaches day probably, but anybody else notice Michael plugged his new school where he's trying to keep a job?
Of course.
That was his way. But
I only attended one game this weekend, so I felt like I was in the best place to talk about that one game. I can look at the scores on some of these other ones. I don't know what else I can.
And that's why the whole message for today was the scores that stood out.
Right.
And that means the best game. We didn't talk about a lot of the Corky Kell games. We talked about some other things all week. We had different topics talking about these games, but today it was really about the scores that stood out. So, I mean, those 6 stood out to me. Feel free to comment on the things that stood out to you. That's what makes this great is we don't all have to agree. All of us could only attend 1 or 2 games. Probably this week you may could have watched 7 or 8 of them on TV, but you can't be everywhere. So it's okay to have an opinion. It's okay to disagree. Tell us what you think. What score stood out to you? And we'll see you next time.